Okay, hello everyone. So this is the first live stream that I'm doing. So my name is Bybreen Samuels, and I'm a pro-aging baby boomer who helps other baby boomers reinvent themselves psychologically, practically, and technically so they can thrive in the third act of life. So I've decided to do weekly live shows whereby I answer questions, provide insights, information that can really help to expand the lives of baby boomers. So I'll just wait for a couple of moments before I dive in with the first session where I'll be answering a question that was posed by Karen. So what I'll do is just wait a couple more seconds and then we'll kick off. So it's great for those of you who are here. Wonderful to see you. So the idea is that with these live shows, I really want to create a sense of developing a community where we get to know each other better and whereby you will be able to pose questions to me. So if you've got any comments or questions, pop them in the chat so I can see who's here. And if you just want to say where you're from, that would be great. So with this first session, the question that I have is from Karen. And her question is to do with being an introvert and networking. Because the session today, I'm going to be covering 5 ways in which you can begin to exercise your networking skills. So here's Karen's question. She said, how do people who are who are introverts become better networkers? I consider myself to be a social introvert, so I socialize well, but I have a hard time with that initial step of networking. So, what I want to do is to share 5 ways, 5 ideas that you can begin to look at exercising those skills. And I want you to kind of loosen up with regards to the sense of networking and think about the process more in terms of making new friends. And although you may be a fantastic baby boomer, please don't give up on the idea that you think it's too late to actually make friends. I remember watching something very recently where Jane Fonda was promoting a film that she's in with Sally Fields and a couple of other women. And what Jane was sharing was this idea that people seem to think once they, reach into their 50s and 60s and beyond, it's really difficult to make friends. And she very much was promoting the idea that, if we consciously want to go out and make friends, it's about how do we place ourselves in the position so that we are welcoming. And I want you to kind of bear that in mind as I step through what are 5 ideas whereby you can begin to look at how you can reinvent yourself regarding how to network. So, before I do that, I just want to share that I'm somebody who is a baby boomer. I'm 59 and I really do enjoy the sense of aging. So, I'm a pro aging baby boomer. And when I think about reinvention, it is something that I have lived very proactively, particularly over the last 10 years, and will continue to do so. So the theme of reinvention is really important. And the ideas that I'll be sharing with you will help you to rethink how you could begin to network. So, the first of the 5 ideas is to network with yourself. Now, before you think, what am I talking about? Bear with me. There is method to my madness. It's really important that we kind of get a sense of who we are. And why do I say this? Over the last decade, 12 years or so, we have been bombarded with messages coming from social media in particular. Indiscriminate messaging that, as soon as we open our phones, the apps are there and we get everybody's stories in terms of their personal journeys, as well as, news coming from around the world. And so what that can do is saturate us in terms of information that is just pouring forth. We're surrounded by information, we're swimming in information and data. And what this can do is overwhelm you in terms of thinking about, well, what is it that you actually think? And this is the beginning of this idea of networking yourself. So I'll give you an example from my life. So a few years ago, just as the downturn was happening, the Great Recession, I got an opportunity. I won an international scholarship to go and do some research in China. Incidentally, it was about looking at how older people in position are positioned in society. So I had an amazing time in Beijing and Shanghai. I was there for a little while, and when I came back, there was a noticeable shift. And one of the things that I stopped doing was watching TV. Now, it's not as if, there was any kind of indication coming from China. I'm not saying that at all. But what I was paying attention to was this shift that I was feeling, this internal shift. I had this amazing journey, and I wanted to take time to really distill my own thoughts. What do I think? I've had this amazing experience, but also I wanted to begin detaching from being bombarded by news. And so I was an avid reader of broadsheet newspapers. I used to watch the news. I'm very political. But I just remember coming back from China, and that was the beginning of my own turning point where I started to let go of the narratives, the kind of bombardment of narratives. And I stopped watching TV. In fact, one of the programs I stopped watching first was a soap opera called EastEnders. I don't know whether it's still about, but I do remember that was the first program. So I started to let go. And then I got a sign from the universe, as we invariably do. And my TV died on me. So I thought, there's an indication. Keep moving forward. What I afforded myself was this opportunity whereby I could begin to get back into my own thoughts, understanding my own thoughts, deepening my own thoughts, and finding ways where I could begin to connect the different personas that we all have and really kind of deepen my journey internally. And so that's the first suggestion. How do you begin to network yourself so you know what it is that you like? What it is that you respond to, what type of stimuli that you find engaging, but you're beginning to lead this journey, lead this process from the inside out. The second thing, the second way in which you can begin to really explore networking is to become inquisitive. What did you discover as you were exploring your inner terrain? What did you become curious about? What were your thoughts? Were there recurring thoughts? Was there a sense of, well, actually, I'm really into this, or I'm particularly interested in that? And so by becoming inquisitive, you start your journey of learning, relearning who you are. So, back in the day when Tony Blair was the prime minister, one of the mantras was education, education, education. And although it was really relating to school age children, this sense of how do we continue or how do we build this practice of lifelong learning? And so the more that you become inquisitive in terms of what stimulates you, what lights your fire, what turns you on, by connecting in this particular way, you form a deeper understanding as to the themes or the subjects, or your own curiosity kicks into place. So you start with yourself in terms of networking yourself. By networking yourself, you then become curious and inquisitive, and this leads you into your own development journey. Now, the third way in which you can begin to develop your networking skills is to really remove the phrase imposter syndrome. Now, why do I say this? So, when I was in my mid 50s, I retrained as a software engineer. That's when it started about 5 years ago. And I have to say, It's the first time I really came into contact with this phrase, imposter syndrome, and I absolutely, absolutely hate it. Anybody who knows me knows that I just think this is a phrase that whenever I went to tech meetings in particular, it was a phrase that was bandied about. Everybody was saying that they had imposter syndrome. And I think it's a really damaging way of people to relate to themselves. You know, you might not know something and you might be very early in your technical journey or any other journey, but that doesn't make you an imposter. So, if any of you are feeling as if, well, I'm feeling held back, um, is it because this narrative of imposter syndrome has permeated your world in one form or another that then brings about, I just think, a false sense of insecurity? Then when you think of it, you know, as a baby boomer or a boomer X, and that's somebody who's in their early 50s, they're in touching distance of baby boomers, you know, we've lived at least 5 decades. And having lived at least 5 decades, you have built up a bank of knowledge, a bank of information that, you know, you are standing on, sitting on, you know, immersed in a history of knowledge and information. And so, therefore, don't diminish who you are by buying into or connecting to this idea of being an imposter. I just think it weakens your identity because if you approach networking situations, and you know what I'm sharing today isn't so much about the tactics of, you know, going into different environments, because we can network, yes, people all around us. It's more about who do you need to become. And I think the stronger you become in terms of your own sense of who you are is going to give you the confidence to walk into any environment, because people are everywhere, where you could be presented with the opportunity to build a new friendship, which could be equated to networking. So please kick imposter syndrome to the curb. I think it could potentially damage you and do you a disservice in terms of what it is that you've built up over the last 5 decades plus. You're wonderful. There's nothing wrong with you. You just may be unaware about particular subjects, and there's nothing wrong with that. The fourth way in which you can begin to develop your networking skills is by becoming a great listener. So, wherever you are, you know, in any situation, when you're engaging somebody, you know, you're walking into an environment, whoever you're speaking to or whoever you're introduced to, listen. Be the person who is open. Be the person who is receptive. Be the person who wants to engage. But instead of this projection that you want to appear to be so interesting that you are babbling away, shift your perspective so whoever you're engaged with really gets to feel the sense that you are interested in them. So I'll give you a very recent example. Just this week, I've got a new accountability partner, and we met via a Facebook group. And the whole group was invited to share information about what it is that we're doing with regards to our businesses. And so that's exactly what happened. And so this woman shared some information, and I just thought, oh, she sounds really interesting. So I reached out to her. We jumped on a Google call and had an amazing conversation. And she led with, you know, what it is that she's focusing on. And she was self-aware and conscious that, you know, she was speaking and holding my attention. And there were 2 or 3 moments when she said to me, don't worry, I want to help you. I want to share something with you. I've got an idea in terms of how I can help you. So, by creating this environment whereby she posted something, I showed I was interested in what she was sharing. That then led to a conversation that enabled her to open up more. And, we were engaging. So, I'd ask her some questions to find out more. And people love to explore who they are, but they also feel really good when they feel as if they're being heard. And every single one of us wants to be seen, we want to be heard, and we want to be understood. And she was self aware and conscious enough that she was sharing, and she opened up and said, I want to equally help you. So, the more that you can appear to be and to actually be a great listener, means that you're able to show up in whatever environment and to be present to the person who is in front of you. How many of us have been to events whereby you're in conversation with somebody and they're looking over your shoulder because they think there is somebody more important for them to go and speak to? Whenever that's happened to me, I just say, go ahead, be my guest. But if you want to practice really good networking skills and develop these qualities, means that you can go into any room and own your presence in the room by being interested in other people. And the fifth way that you can begin to develop your skills around networking is to give first and then be open to receiving. So it sort of builds upon what I've just said. Think of yourself as a bridge. Everybody, wants to connect, whether you're a social introvert, as Karen describes herself, or whether you're deeply introvert, or whether you're an extrovert, or a variation of the two. Everybody wants to connect. And so, how could you become a bridge that enables somebody else or other people to connect with you? Because by being the bridge builder means that you're giving first. Instead of approaching your networking activities, and as I say, there are people everywhere. So it doesn't mean you have to go to this particular event to go and meet this particular person who is then going to help you get X, Y, and Z. What about looking at opportunities where there could just be maybe mutual exchange, or maybe there's no mutual exchange? It's about what you could contribute. I'll give you an example from my own world. So a couple of weeks ago, I had a carpenter come round and refit my kitchen. So, he was there in a professional capacity and he did an amazing job. He was fabulous and he happened to be another boomer. So anyway, we fell into easy conversation and then I would get on and do my own work, etc., etc. He did a fabulous job. And as he was leaving, I said to him, what's the name of your boss? And he said, why? So he thought he'd done something wrong. I said, no, 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 no. It's quite the reverse. You've done such a fantastic job that I want to write a testimonial for the work that you've done and how you've conducted yourself whilst you've been here at my home. And this man, it's like he stood 10 foot tall. It was wonderful. He was beaming and he was so moved because here is somebody who, goes into people's homes every single day. And he said, I've never had anybody say that. I'd really value if you could do that because I've just joined this company and, I just think it will be a great thing if you could do that. And so I said, no problem. That's exactly what I did. So this capacity to give first, and then maybe you receive something or maybe you don't. But by doing so, it's the ability for whereby you begin to bridge build. So that's what I wanted to share with you in terms of 5 ways whereby you can begin to develop your networking skills. So just to recap them, The ways that in which you can do that is to network with yourself, become inquisitive, kick imposter syndrome to the curb, become a great listener, and find ways whereby you can give first. And then maybe you receive something or maybe you don't. But the idea is, how do you become a bridge builder? So that's what I wanted to share with you in this first live. Just some vignettes that help you to build out your skills, that when you're walking into any environment, and as I said, it could be, you're going to buy a pint of milk. It could be that you're in a market, people are everywhere, but how do you show up? And so to link it back to Karen's question, whether you're a social introvert or not, it's more about how well do you understand who you are? And so that you are then being led from the inside out, as opposed to being bombarded with millions of pieces of data points through social media. It's like a hose, you know? So if you step away from the hose and then you start to design your own journey from the inside out, it will then help to build your skills about being more confident. And so you're not thinking about, what do I need to say so I come across as being somebody really impressive when I walk into a situation? But rather, whatever the event is there something that you could pick up from the event that opens up a conversation? Or could it be a sense of, instead of asking this question, which is so 20th century, which is so passe, and it's just so conservative, is what do you do for work? I mean, it's just so boring. It's like one dimensional. Well, I do X, Y, and Z. So, that's the beginning and middle and end of it all. Instead of doing that, maybe it's something connected to the event or the situation that you're in that you find as a way to kind of open up the conversation. And then maybe just, ask them what brings them joy or what has brought them joy during the day. you know, Move away from the kind of conventional questions and more into kind of exploring them with those types of questions. So that's it. That's it for this live stream. I will be back again next Sunday. I've got an event next Saturday. The idea is that I'm going to live stream once a week, um, primarily at weekends, whereby you can ask me a question. I will provide an answer to that, or as I said, I'll provide vignettes and insights about themes and issues that touch on the world of baby boomers, that helps us become more expansive. So the next live stream, as I said, will be next Sunday at 3:30. And I will be talking about how to attract a mentor into your world. And I will be approaching it from the point of view of reverse mentoring. All right. So if you've got any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment box below. And if you are watching this on the replay, please write in replay. And as I said, look forward to really building up some connections with you, building out our community and sharing ideas that help you as a fabulous baby boomer or a boomer X or anybody else who happens to be watching, find ways to develop yourself so that you continue to thrive. So until then, have a great weekend and I will see you again next week. Bye.